Okay. Okay, we're getting ready to start. Today we're going to continue a little bit from what we did last time. Last time we talked about the first parsha of the whole Torah, which is the first portion, which is the Genesis in the book of Genesis. Uh, Today we're going to talk about a little bit about Noah. We're going to do a review. I'm going to share screen. Let's see here. Wait 1 second. I'm going to share the screen so you can see. There's the one. Yeah.
Somebody's using a machine downstairs, so I'm gonna cut my microphone, okay?
No problem. Here it
I
is.
am.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Hello, Neil. How are you?
Hey, Neil, the class is supposed to start at 11 o'clock. Why are you late?
Oh, good. Neil's feeling better, I hope.
Oh, I'm not late. I was outside.
Neil's all better. Good.
Betty's still, be quiet. Betty's still.
Okay.
I want some water. Some water, Morgan?
No, thank you.
Sure.
Oh,
Bob?
Tom says hello.
Tom, say hello.
Yeah.
Say hello back to him.
On the phone.
Beautiful. Okay. You got this. I think we got some people over here too. It's coming. Sheila's coming here.
Good morning, good morning.
You're gonna need more than
Morning, good morning.
Yeah, there's 2 more people coming.
Yeah, great. So there are more people coming to class. I'm going just to make some room here.
It's called Jewish 11
No,
o'clock.
I had a doctor's appointment, so I'm sorry.
Get a new doctor.
Who am I gonna sit next to? I'm
I think
sitting,
that's.
Marty, there's one
Am I
there.
nice? No.
Marty,
If you want to sit beside each other.
Always have nice.
Marty, we can sit over there. Here.
I'll sit here so you have a little room.
To move over more.
I move here.
I don't.
Hello, Neil. I was just entering that our big event is now until 12 o'clock on Sunday.
What event?
Who's coming?
You're
The
gonna
Betts,
instruct
Marion
us on
and
how
Perfect.
to live to 1,000.
Yeah, but nobody will listen.
I know, that's right.
Happened over and
Do we
over.
still need
Taking
last
notes, and
week's?
This is what not to do.
Hmm?
We still need last week's?
No.
Yeah, I guess.
That's last week's, and there's a new one today.
Oh, okay. So we finished completely last week?
Yeah.
I made a list. I just put the names
Okay.
of what I'm gonna
Okay. Gentlemen, there you go.
And ladies.
No, just the two who are talking.
No, he talks too much.
Now, before even I start, any class, I like always to offer. To offer this class could be to the elevation of the soul of someone or someone who might be sick. So if you know of anyone, you want to mention their names, we'll offer this class on whatever comes from this class, to
Andrea Schoen,
Andrew Schoen.
very sick.
Very sick. Okay, for refuah shlema. Who else? Anyone else?
What?
Early clicker.
Micah Kelebat. Higher.
Lois Wilgorin.
Okay. Anyone else?
Early clicker.
Thank you. Nancy Rayship and Banny Rayship.
George Herman died, everybody.
Yeah. So we'll do it on the elevation of the soul. Liloni Nishmati of George Herman. Yeah, the funeral is tomorrow at 10. We are in need of some men because one of the daughters is frum, it's Orthodox, and she wants to say Kaddish, but she wouldn't say Kaddish if we don't have 10 men there.
Where's it gonna be?
Jewish men. Hello, Moshe.
Tomorrow?
It's going to be what's the name of this? What's the name of the cemetery? What? Herman.
Israel, something? David?
Star of David. Star of David. Yeah. Okay. So good. Everyone gets.
More than one table.
You got one. You got yours. Yeah. Good. Okay. So for those who were not last week, I can't just repeat everything we did last week, but but we started to really analyze a little bit what's going on with the creation, what the creation might mean. A synopsis. Because as soon as I start, I know it's going to have questions, and then we're going to go off track.
To bring us up to today, because that's.
I'm here. There's a recap here, that I just put there on purpose. It's not everything, but a little bit. So one is that we are also creators. So we are co-creators with God. That means that we are also creators. We have the chance, and we also have the ability to be creators. Okay? In which way we create and how we create. That's something that we talked a little bit last time. If God created with the word, He created with the verb. We also create with words, and we're going to talk a little about that today as well. God doesn't create like magic. He said the evening, He said the morning. We say something, we create realities. He created His own reality. We create with our words and our actions too, our realities. Now, many people discuss the difference between, so if I think of something but I don't say it, do I create it?
Oh, in my mind.
I mean, it's in my mind. I see a girl, that is beautiful or whatever, and then I go like, well, I would love to date this girl, but that means, but I have a wife, right?
I think if you don't take action, you haven't created anything.
Okay?
Oh,
You think if you don't take action, you're not creating anything?
Yeah, because you have an idea.
No,
but
there's no truth here. There are no truth. There's only speculations.
If you don't tell the world or somebody else, it dies with you, so that's not a creation.
Okay, so I think of something, but I don't take action or I don't say anything. It's in my own mind and nothing happens. It's just in your mind.
and what if you write it down?
Nothing
Unless somebody reads
happens. It's on your paper.
If somebody takes your paper and does something with it, then it becomes something. Then you created something.
Everyone can hear from what they say, because I know that was a kind of a problem. I will repeat when you when you can't hear. Or speak louder. We have people here in the Zoom. Yes, of course.
Come to the class.
Now some people cannot come. That's okay. I mean, that's why we offer also the Zoom. I know it's nice to have people in town here. But now, what do you think here at the Zoom? We are debating about creation. Do we think of something, or we create something in our mind, but we don't take action, or we don't write it, or we don't say? Are we creating?
No,
No.
So everyone says no.
no.
Okay, very nice. I'll tell you what the Kabbalist says, and a lot of also psychologists, and I will bring you some quotes next time. The answer from these scholars and these rabbis is that actually we are creating if we have it in our mind.
Right.
It's just that we play we would like to think that we are not creating it. I'll tell you what's their rationale when it comes to that. They ask this question. I have a soccer ball, or maybe a baseball, just make it more American. I have I know. Well, I have a ball, okay? We could be ping pong if you want. It's fine, volleyball, yeah. So I have a ball, right? And then they ask this question. Which tool I can use in order to send it farther, or the farthest, right? If I kick that ball, with the foot, can get somewhere, right? X amount of distance. If I throw with my hand, it can get to X amount of distance, but I can throw with my mind. So which one can go the farthest? Which one has more strength? Why?
Because I've
go
gotten
anywhere.
it over the fence.
It's unlimited.
It's unlimited. So that's why the rabbis have suggested, already, even the Hasidim say the same thing, that your mind is very dangerous. With your mind you can create, and even if you don't say it, you are creating. Why? If you have a fear of something, right? You're afraid of something, but you might not tell anyone. Or let's say you are with your kids, but you don't tell them, that you are afraid. Whether they perceive it or not, you're going to probably, because it has been proved is, that you can attract anything that you are afraid of. You're afraid of, of darkness or of cockroaches, right? Cockroaches. And all of a sudden, you'll... No, it's true. It's true. Just check yourself, okay? I'm not going to give you some, because each person has their own, their own experiences. But check yourself that what you are afraid of, if you think about it, even if you don't even say it, most of the time you're going to attract it. You attract it.
I'm afraid of money.
Lack of,
I love that.
No, she's gonna attract it,
oh, attract.
I wrote a book.
attract it. If
What?
you're afraid
I
of it,
wrote a
you'll
book.
attract
You
it.
wrote a
I
book?
wrote a book.
Yes.
I don't know how to put it together. When I pass on, it's going to be thrown away as garbage. So there is no creation because it dies with my brain.
Can I suggest you get a co-writer? That's what most people do.
No. He's making a point, saying, so Neil is saying that he wrote a book, but if nobody writes it or it's not published, and then he passes, then that book goes to the garbage. So that means that it's not creation. That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
That means actually the book was like never was created.
So how could it be if there's nobody to pass it on to the, for posterity? It just dies.
Unless
And even though it's created, I grant you it's created and it's in my mind and can go to infinity. Period.
Okay.
End of story.
Okay, so that's what this is that kind of the challenge we have, right? Because most of the time we are sitting now here in a table that we can touch. We are sitting in a computer I can touch, but I'm virtually have people on the other side. That was never conceived. I mean, when you probably were all around born, that was never conceived. Maybe it was in a movie of Spielberg. Who knows? But
But I was thinking about, you created something, and if you tell somebody else, that creation is there. It's in our minds. There is a creation that you can tell, right?
But he said if nobody reads his book or nobody knows that he wrote that book, it's the same with the mind. Nobody knows what I'm thinking, right now.
Just disjointed thoughts with no way to put
But
them
he's making a
together.
different point. What's attractive to you? Maybe you have it all in your head, and I don't know what it is, and I don't want to know what it is. But whatever you're thinking about is what attracts. Is what you're attracting. The law of attraction.
It is a law of attraction. I mean, that's where it all comes from, right? Do you believe in the law of attractions? People are in the Zoom.
I never heard of that, the law of attraction.
You never heard of that? Now you have something to look into Google.
The secret. That's the secret.
Yeah, so there is a whole thing called the law of attraction. Now, I'm going to move on a little bit because I know this is a challenge thing. We're going to be talking about this a lot, even in any of my classes. Also, because I'm not going to try to convince you. I just want you to live it through your own eyes. But sometimes we are not aware of this because we don't pay attention to things that could happen. But what I only would like to say is that, and I want to bring you some citation and some quotes, that there are rabbis, throughout the history and also psychologists in a lot of different areas that go beyond what we just see. Meaning actually that they do believe that with your mind, you are really creating something. That's why they suggest that, and even if you don't say it, you don't write it anywhere, that's why they mention, the continuation of that thought or school of thought is the word coherence, right? Because if you think something, you think that I'm ugly, but you just say, you're beautiful, you're just betraying yourself because you're thinking one thing, you're saying another thing, and then you might do something else with your actions, right? So that's where your heart thinks differently. So the talk about coherence is that to really try to be that your heart, your action, your words, and your mind they are really synchronized and they are one. And most of the time when we have, they mention about different issues, even in the spiritual realm, that we might have is because we betray ourselves over and over again, right? Sometimes we are taught that way, from our parents, just say thank you, but I don't really know what to say, so I don't like that gift. And now the kids of today, actually, they're taught the same way and they don't care. And you'll see more and more little kids, 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, they will tell you what they think. They don't care. They don't care what you think or what the parents taught them. If they didn't like the gift, they will tell you, that's really awful. And they'll tell you. They'll tell you.
I don't think that the parents tell them this. When we were kids, the parents told us this.
To say
You had to be nice and you couldn't say anything. But today, parents are totally different
Totally, you're right.
than we were.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a
So I
parenting
think
class,
they
but
teach their children to express their feelings rather than to suppress their feelings.
absolutely, and that I think it's a wonderful thing. Now, so going back to that idea, so the recap from Breshit again, it's the same thing, right? So we are co-creators and we create our own reality. Now we are responsible for the outcome, for the results of what we create. That we talked last time about that because we talk about responsibility. Most of the time we like to blame others, right? And we saw it in the story of Adam and Eve and the whole tree and and the tree of knowledge and the fruit, and this one blames this one, this blames the other one, etc. They give away the responsibility. We talk about also this idea of neged kezro, which is the opposite helper. Remember that God said that it's not good for the man to be alone. They created an opposite helper. Then we are also again about what I just said is we're responsible for our own lives, and we tend to give away our responsibility. We talked about that last Wednesday. And then last thing that we saw was that we are responsible for our brothers and sisters as well. When Cain, after killing Abel, said, "Am I my brother's keeper?" The answer is yes. Yes, we are. We are responsible for each other, and not just our family. Not just our people that we love and we know and grew up with us, our friends. We are responsible for anyone. That's more than written, in the Talmud, the Torah, just name it. You are responsible for any other soul, another part of the creation of this world, including animals, including the trees, including anything that is created that was created by God. Now let's talk about Noah for a second, which is our next story in the Genesis. Some people call it the rebirth. Why? Because we know a lot of the story. What is the story of Noah?
Flood.
The flood.
Wiping out everybody.
What?
Starting over again.
Starting over again. Good. Recreating, right? Or rebirthing. Good. So Noah was found to be kind of the tzaddik, the righteous of his time. That was kind of the best thing they could find. He told, him and his family, you're fine, you're safe. Take all these animals, take this ark. So here comes kind of the first question, right? One of the things that it says about the story of Noah is Noah comes from this word, like to rest, to be comfortable, right? I have a Hebrewist here, someone who was born in Israel, so. And some of the rabbis, will suggest that the real story of Noah is really to get out from our comfort zone. I talk about this also in Lech Lecha when I was here visiting. And it's to really fight our own Noah. It's to really fight our own kind of like comfort zone, right? Sheila and I talked about this as well. So why they say that? Because when he suggested or he's commanded, to do this ark, Noah, the rabbis will always point out that Noah never argues back. He doesn't even try to convince other people to be better. Look, the world is going to be destroyed. He said, okay, great, me and my family and my 3 kids, it's okay, we'll go there. Bye. We'll do it, right? At least that's what the Torah says. And, well, yes, because sometimes, there are things that we don't know there. So that's kind of being in the comfort zone, right, for him. They always compare with Abraham. They always compare him with Abraham, who, when Sodom and Gomorrah these cities are going to be destroyed, he goes and argues, and he tried to bargain, with God. Now, so here's a good question. I want to ask a lot of questions today. So if you have something to write, write something, or have it in your mind. So the question is, how far is your threshold, right? What is the limit for you to destroy the world that you created? Right? We each of us create their own world, right? It might be families, might be a job, might be, a reputation. It can be a lot of different things. We create all the time, right? We create and we live in our minds. So the question is now, God decided that this was his threshold. He said, you know what? That's it. I'm going to destroy this world that I created. I'm going to start over again. I'm going to save the best of the best that I can pick from my creation, and that's it. So my question is, in your own creation, in your own worlds, in your own lives, what is your threshold? I mean, what is the limit? When is it a time that you say, you know what, this doesn't work for me. I'm going to throw it away.
You have to believe that the person telling you this quote-unquote threat, that you believe. If you don't believe them, you just pass it off and you do nothing. But if you really believe that that person is, or that whatever is telling you the truth, and you believe what he's saying, you're going to react to that. It's a matter of, what do you feel in your heart? Do you think this guy's a crackpot, or do you think this guy really means what he says?
So what you're talking about, just I'm trying to understand in anything, but
Destroying the world. Like somebody comes up to you and says, I'm going to destroy the world.
no, I understand. That's one thing is to play God. When I'm talking about your own world, right? Okay. Your world. I'm not talking that you get into someone else's world, and someone else's knows. I'm just talking about like in your own world. We all create and destroy all the time. We create, recreate, rebirth. We do it all the time. You're right, and that's the whole idea. Yes.
I don't remember. I create, but I don't destroy. In my mind, I just create. I don't try to destroy anything. So I don't see how man destroys. I mean, how do we destroy in our daily life?
Okay, I was married and then I divorced. I destroyed, that specific part of my life, relationship, that destroyed a lot of other parties and other relationships. So that's the way I destroy my marriage, or I decided. I know that the word destroy sometimes sounds like so harsh, or it says
You had a reality.
I created, if you want, I kind of destroy, you can see it in different ways. My kids can say, you destroy our family, right? I mean, in a way, we had a beautiful family and you decided to live and then we destroy it,
Well, you didn't destroy, you uncreated.
Okay, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes we want to be polite with the words because it's just that it hurts so much to think that we are destroyers. But we are destroyers. We destroy. We destroy with words. We destroy with everything. So you understand me? I'm just give you one example, right?
We're actually recreating the world as we want it to be, and leaving the parts behind that are negative. And it's very, very difficult to find where that threshold is. At what point do you say, I've had enough?
Exactly. So that's my question to you all.
When objectivity is lost.
When objectivity is lost,
What are you talking about?
1 second. She's talking. So can you expand a little bit?
So I think being open to different points of views, different interpretations, whether it be anything, right? Whenever you close out the opinions of others, whenever you lose that objectivity and take a firm position on anything, is when you destroy the narrative that you're going to accept any other point of view.
When I am afraid of abandon my comfort zone.
It could be anything.
Okay, so Graciela is saying that she's afraid of abandoning, the comfort zone, because in order to really get to that point, you understand there's consequences, of what you're about to do, right? That means actually but maybe the comfort zone is, again, talking about divorce, right? How many marriages, stay unhappy just because the comfort zone or the establishment says, or the status quo, or you don't want to damage the kids, or wherever it is, just
or at work. At work also.
At work too. At work is the same thing, right? People stay in jobs because they're afraid they're going to find another job, or they're going to kind of maybe put in jeopardy the economy, right? The finances.
Yeah.
Someone is retiring soon here.
I'm retiring. I was going to say I'm retiring in June, and I don't know what's going to be like. I'm, looking forward to it, but
and that's a way of uncreating. I mean, when you retire, you are saying, I'm moving on to something different that I don't know. It's a leap of faith. I don't know what's going to happen, and everything that I've done in the last 45 years, it's going to be gone.
It's not gone because he's leaving behind a legacy. It's all those children all those families that you help.
Of course, don't get me wrong. What I say is like when he's going to wake up that morning, he's not going to go to the office.
Right.
He's going to probably think about. He will have to figure out. You know what to do, which is it's.
Total change.
Yeah. So I reformulate the question. Anyone in the Zoom, I love participation as well. So think about it. Right? There are a lot of questions I'm going to ask today. You will throw me a lot of emails, this week, but that's okay. So that's one of the questions. What's the limit for you to destroy? Because I was trying to understand, in my point of view, when I read, God's threshold, like what is His limit? What are His boundaries to say enough is enough? We know from the creation we talked last time, He created and recreated many times. He created and destroyed. That's what the Kabbalah says, and the Zohar, many, many, many worlds before. And there are probably also, this is just the Earth. I mean, there are plenty of worlds out there, galaxies, like we have no idea of, that He probably or she created. Now, so the question is, why God, these are questions, that come from the parasha. He said to Noah, to do all this, put the ark and everything, and all the science says, why wait for it? He waited 40 days and 40, but why?
40 days.
How long did it take him to build the ark, you said?
No, it doesn't matter. What I say is why did He do this game of getting them in the ark when He could have destroyed them in one day? Why so many days? He could have done it in one day. Why waiting?
In the book of Enoch, it said because he wanted to wait for some of the Nephilim to apologize and turn to God.
Okay.
But that's...
No, it makes a lot of sense.
Enoch was Noah's grandfather.
Yes, Enoch is exactly Noah's grandfather, who became him in Metatron, later on, one of the big angels in literature. So, it's a good question. Why wait? God doesn't need to wait. He could have done it the way it's right, but it's very nice. He's looking for teshuvah. He's looking for someone maybe to repent. I don't know how many people can repent, if they were swimming out of that storm. But it seems that, even by building the ark, maybe someone could have come. The ark probably was not built in 1 second. Could come and say, you're right. I I don't know. Maybe Noah was, maybe it was cuckoo. It's fine, But it's a good question, to really have in mind. Sometimes we threaten. Yeah, we threaten so much, sometimes we don't want to really sometimes destroy something, and you talk to someone, and they say, look, things are not going well, I think that you talk to your boss, or whatever it is, and then you try to give a little kind of leeway, to maybe he says, well, okay, I'm going to raise your salary, don't leave, right? But you kind of try things a little bit. Maybe God, like Fiona says, was maybe trying to see what someone would jump into saying something different. And Sodom and Gomorrah, yes, that was.
But boom, he still destroyed it.
Yeah. So we continue. So here are, there are questions for all of us. So how many times do we constantly destroy because this is the world that the way that you know it, right? We create a reality, although we get out of it. We may not rise our consciousness, forgive, or learn something from it. That in less than a heartbeat, we already are attracting that reality. So that's what I told you before, that we are attracting that reality that we already know, because our child, our ego, our nefesh, our, what you want to call it in psychology or on Jewish spirituality, that's it tends to do. So the question is how we create a different reality when we are about to recreate.
By thinking of it.
By thinking of this, okay. So I go back.
If we dare, by talk of it,
okay.
About it,
okay.
And if we dare, by working on it.
So the whole point is here, it's like, okay, God created a world. How many times we have in the Torah and in the whole Tanakh, in the Bible, that he's regretful about having created this world. Why? Because the human, being just go and often just goes back to the same mistakes, and he feels betrayed, she or he feels, betrayed, but this happens also in our lives. I will give you another example because, just since I was talking about my personal life. As soon as I met Marcela, when I divorced, I would say a year went by, and I was already having the same fights that I had with my former wife. And I was in my head. I'm in a different state. It's a different, totally cultural background, right? Because they didn't come from the same country. They look totally different. They all have both different experiences. So Marcela will look at me and say, "Who's the common denominator here?" Right? So that's a nice way to say, whether you change or so. And I couldn't believe it because we always are into this idea of, okay, I'm going to change, I'm going to switch jobs, right? And all of a sudden, you get the same secretary, who's still, answering you back and doesn't do what you asked for. Then you have the same boss who is, is very bossy. And I say, but I just changed my jobs. How in this world, I end up actually almost in the same environment with different companies, the different people, different actors.
That's the joke. When you think about everything wrong in your life, there's one common denominator, you.
You, yes, totally. So everyone understands where we're going with this? Mm-hmm. Yes, we want to destroy what we had and create, and then we recreate something different. However, then we end up with the same situations back and over again. Yes.
Comfort zone has a lot of inertia.
Comfort zone has a lot of
A lot of inertia.
inertia. Can you expand a little more on that?
Change is tough.
Change is tough. So we think we change.
We avoid it where we can.
Exactly. So we are changing states, we are changing cars, we are changing, partners. We change things, but if you don't change inside, you're going to attract the same thing. That's what the rabbis are suggesting here.
Can I tell a story real fast if I can?
Loud, so they can hear you.
Yeah, there's a story of a person who comes to a town, he goes to the rabbi, he says, "Rabbi, the people here, when I left, were very nasty, terrible people. How are the people here?" He says, "You didn't get along with the people in your other village? They're the same here. You're not going to be happy." So it's, as you said, it's that person takes his bad things and he passes it on to the next person.
Absolutely, and we do the same thing with the next generations as well. So we pass it on. So that's kind of the big thing. So in order to create a different reality, you have not only go on and destroy, but change also the world that we know it and as you know it, and unlearn. So you need to learn to unlearn, the most difficult thing in life. Learn to unlearn. I remember when I was studying, in college, I was studying vocal pedagogy and opera. And I came with a lot of bad habits, with another teacher. It was so difficult, because I was singing this for so many years, the repertoire that I was singing. She spent, this teacher, this professor, she spent, I think, 6 months to teach me how to unlearn. It was so difficult. It was so difficult. Like you say, comfort zone, has a lot of inertia and it's difficult to change. But I learned a good lesson there that I had to forget about everything that I knew and the way I knew it. So here is a big thing. Let's see how we go with this one, okay? We're going to defy a little bit our beliefs. So God did something different, right? Or is that somehow he or she also attracts what he or she knows? We are co-creators. We understand now that in order for us to change, we need to change things also inside. So we can't really, otherwise we will create a world that looks different, but then essentially we'll be attracting what we already know, because we really haven't really changed inside. It's more of the outside. Now, God had created, this world many times, and the question, because if we look at the last 5,783 years, there are many things that the humans haven't really changed so much. Nothing, right, says Neil. So the question that I have, and I'm, again, defying, big beliefs, is if human beings in the behavior commit the same mistakes or the sins, some people know it, for the last 5,782 years or 3 years, right, would it be that God did not elevate consciousness? Maybe that he or she didn't also change inside? Maybe actually there's no our fault the way we are, it's just that the reality that God created.
No.
Okay. I love, I want, you know.
Why not? Because the only reality we live is the one that we create, not the one that God writes down for us. God writes many, many, many different realities, but we are the ones that choose. We choose this or that reality.
Okay. So God, after creation, he or she has nothing to do with it.
Yes, he has, but he creates millions of realities, and we choose which one we want.
Oh, Graciela is getting into something a little more juicy. You understand what Graciela is saying? Not yet? Okay.
I leave it to you to explain.
Okay, just bear with me on this one. You know, we don't have to understand it today, but you know, you'll get it because we watch a lot of movies. But this is in a lot of different movies. That means actually that right now, as we are all here, there is another reality of all of us learning here, but in a parallel, in a kind of like a parallel reality. Okay. You understand a little bit where I'm going? No. Okay.
Like a fourth dimension or fifth dimension.
It's kind of a dimension with dimension, but also it's like the what is called the butterfly effect sometimes. You know the butterfly effect? Yeah, you watch some movies of that? The butterfly effect? Anyone knows what it is?
Yeah.
You know in the Zoom what the butterfly effect?
Yes.
So
You may have cheese in
yeah,
Japan,
I'm going to explain.
and here you will have COVID.
So the butterfly effect is like a butterfly flaps its wings on the desert of Africa, and that little bit of force carries out to become like a hurricane in the Atlantic. It's like a small thing can lead to a big.
So
That's like the stone that you,
Ripple in the water.
so everybody has an effect. We have an effect on the world. That's basically it.
Correct. Yeah, but what happened, for example, in the butterfly effect, in some of the movies, is these people who are able, for example, to go back in life, in history and change something in history, right? Then also that will create, a different future, right? If I go, and I have and all of a sudden someone someone incarcerated, Washington, when he was about to really do what he needed to do, this history of the United States will be totally different, right? So here it happens a little bit as well. Now there are realities that we as co-creators also we create. So let's put it this way. So right now, Moshe is sitting next to me, but let's say that he could have decided to really come here and sit where Neil is sitting, right? The whole reality would have been different. Now, this is going to be, pay attention to this one, and if you don't understand it, don't feel frustrated, okay? It's not my accent, it's just the whole philosophy behind this. Yeah, you can blame my accent, it's fine. But at the point that Moshe is sitting here, right? There is a Moshe who also probably before coming here, he made different decisions in his mind. Do I go to the rabbi's class? Or maybe, I don't know, I go for an ice cream, right? Could have been. But yes. I don't know. I mean, any of you, before you came here, you probably made a decision whether to come to the class, or maybe you had something else, or maybe you were talking to someone on the phone, and you decided to hang up, to come here. But you could have chosen differently.
right, well, anytime you're walking down a path and you pick the right lane rather than the left lane, you have chosen this
Correct.
reality, but that changes everything in your life from
Yes.
that point on.
And there are philosophers, who will go back and say, not only you created a whole reality when you say to the right, but there is a whole reality existing that you didn't decide to go to the left. Or there is a reality that you have chosen maybe going to the left. So these are parallel realities, okay? We can bring Dr. Steven Spielberg to talk about these things because he knows a lot about this. So we're talking about how we get to these reality things. It was who was the one who made a comment about this?
It was online.
He talked
Oh,
about the butterfly
Graciela was talking about this. So all the time we have all these realities available from us. So there's one Gaston right now here, and there's a Gaston who's still living in Boston. There's a Gaston who didn't leave Argentina. Right, it doesn't really exist, that Gaston per se, right? There's a Gaston, who's still married with the first wife. You see what I mean?
Right.
But people in Boston still remember the Gaston that was there.
Exactly. That's it. That's what happens too, because my reality and my creation was there. Now, when people have no idea what I have been doing the last 8 years here, right? Unless I had some contact. So some people, when they think about, the street where I live, that's where Gaston lived. They remember. That's part of the reality, and people who live around you and your relationships and everything also are part of that reality. Whew. Did I say it? It's more complicated than that, but you get what? So what?
You're leaving a piece of you behind in every single thing that you do.
Some people call it fragment.
A fragment. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
A fractal.
Or a fractal. Yeah.
Okay.
So Graciela, what she's saying is like, no, it's not really God's fault that he didn't elevate his consciousness, and that's why he continued creating, the same type of world, because the results seem to be the same, right? It seems that actually he creates a lot of different realities, and the reality, this is very interesting what she's saying, the reality that we are all living right now, it's part of your co-creation. If you don't want to live this reality, actually, that where you might actually be, laid off from work, or or sick or ill or wherever, and you don't like that, it's part of your responsibility as well to really change that and jump into a different reality.
A circumstance will change things. Something very significant in your life will change your reality out of necessity because something dramatic happened to you.
So Neil is saying that the reality might change out of a crisis or a circumstance.
Very few people would understand the concept.
And that's why many
One
people.
second, Graciela.
Very few people will understand the concept of having multiple realities because it's not really significant in their life at the time.
Yeah, but let's bring
It
it.
may be there, but
Let's bring it to something simpler. If your belief is, look, you most of you know, we have a community mental health center with Marcela, right? So we have some clients, who come and they have strong beliefs, and most of their beliefs is what they get them where they are. I believe because my mother, because of my grandmother, because also my great grandmother also had, this disease. I believe that I should have it as well. I don't like it, but it's genetic. And we have changed a lot of people. I've changed their realities and tell them, you don't have to. Not because it's genetic, not because you think it's genetic. Your grandmother had. You don't need to have it, and your kids either. Right? You don't need to have this disease. I know I'm talking, among doctors here, but they will censor me. They will censor me around here, But it's true. Your mind and your beliefs and your reality can change a lot of things.
exactly.
Yep.
Right?
Yes, definitely.
Yes? Okay, doctor says yes. 2 doctors says yes. Well, let's continue because we can be here forever, but it's important to have. Now, Noah is really, for a lot of people, especially now that we live through the pandemic, is really the first quarantine in the, at least in the biblical history, right? Quarantine, from the quarantine comes from the number 40, and so the question is, what happened to us when we were in quarantine, or what happened to us when we go into a situation that is related to being in quarantine at times, right? Whether it's COVID or whether, was a different situation that you isolated yourself for any X reasons. So as the first quarantine, we get that water, we have the symbolism of water that purifies now the whole world, that God knows it. And and then he created a teiva. A teiva is this ark, what we call it the ark, right? But the same name, we use it also for Moses' basket, which I read last week, right? Moses is placed on a basket. That basket is called also teiva.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So teiva is the ark. Now, there is something related to that teiva, the ark, or the ship, whatever you want to call it, and also the teiva of Moses. What do they have in common?
Water as a cleanser.
Water as a cleanser.
Pitch, they had a pitch in the seams, it was made out of wood, or
It's made out of wood. What else?
It protects the
It's
people
protect-
inside.
kind of a protection. So you're kind of protected out of that tool or that technology.
And it's moving, it has a direction.
It has a direction, and someone hasn't told me exactly one of the things I want to hear. It has no GPS.
No.
Just floats freely.
It flows freely. There is no.
Control. That keeps it from.
There is no way to guide it.
Ah,
Right,
okay.
there's no steering.
There's no steering,
Steering.
right?
no sails, nothing.
Yeah, I know we didn't talk so much about that, but it's true. So who is really handling this?
God.
And that's a little bit
From
what they're trying-
above.
that's a little bit what Noah is trying to teach us too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when we want to be in control all the time, we are not allowing the GPS to really do the work. What happens when you have a GPS and they say, "I know a better route. I know, I know the streets and the city, you know, like the palm of my hand. I know how to get there. I don't need this GPS, right?" And then rerouting, right? It's like, and then it's like a jam there, you know, traffic, and they say, "Oh my God, this GPS, I guess they knew the stuff. They knew where the traffic was. I guess that we don't have the satellite thing." So this is kind of a big teaching moment for us. That if we don't know what to do with our life sometimes, yes, it's fine to do something about it, but sometimes we just need to, you know, just let go of the steering and let God do their work. When you are with a partnership with someone, you know, like any type of partnership, and then you're trying to get into this business and this business and this business, and then someone else says, "You just let me do my work." It's like you're just interfering. You're interfering all the time.
That man plans and God laughs.
Yes, God, man plans and God laughs.
He has his thing going.
Absolutely. So at times we think we are doing the correct thing, but we are really thinking with our egos because control comes from the ego. Well, I want to have control. I know what to do with my life. I read in a book that this is what I'm supposed to do. And God is laughing there with angels, you know, like like a comedy show, you know. And that's a little what happens. So that's a little bit of a teaching there with the Teiva. Now, but let's go back to the idea of creating, recreating, and the idea that we had of rechanging our reality, right? So one of the things is that if you want to change your life, you want to change who you are or your environment, you need to clean your environment as well, right? I say I don't drink, right? Or I don't smoke weed. And then I go, you know, into this, you know, this environment where actually everyone's smoking weed. And what the rabbi says is that you have enough free will, you know, to say no. You have enough strong will also to say no. But there's a point that you're going to fall. If you continue with the same amount of people who are offering day by day, hour by hour, hey, you want a little marijuana, a little weed, whatever, etc., usually what they say is that you're going to fall. It's a time you're going to corrupt yourself. That's a little of our essence. And no, you're going to create a doubt. What is called a doubt, you know, safek is called in Hebrew, right? You're going to betray yourself one way or another. We do it all the time. You know how many times I started diets? I mean, it's like, I say, you know, today I'm going to do an intermittent, wherever, you know, and then someone says, hey, you want a cake? And I say, why are you asking me that? I just made a decision, you know, that I was going to do an intermittent, you know, fasting. And why are you offering me this?
Peer pressure.
And they just say
It's also peer pressure.
But it's a birthday. You'll insult me if you don't have a piece of
Exactly. And then
you say, I deserve it.
I deserve it. I deserve, you know, to treat myself, you know, and then you betray yourself.
I've been good all day. Now I can choose.
Exactly. So this is a little what happens too. So they say if you really want to change real change, not only change inside, but you have to clean up a little bit of your environment. It can't really be. Look, I had a chance, once in a time, I had I tell you personal things, in my life because I think it's because I live it through. That's why I teach these things. That's why I was seeking so much for this type of information for me to learn because I need to move on in my life. But I remember once, I had a very, very bad period of a season, with my mom. I decided not to talk to her. And I adore my mom, and she's not here today. Okay, she's probably playing tennis. So, and it was not easy for her. It was not easy for me. But I needed to make some change. I cannot change my mom, But I thought that at that moment we were having a toxic kind of relationship, and I didn't go through well. So I need to stop it and see how my life was without having those certain type of conversations, right? It was not easy, but it was difficult. Now, so that's one of the things there. The rabbis suggest that we all should have our personal teva, our personal kind of ark, our sanctuary, if you want to call it, right? Even when Sundays, we have the Sunday morning minyan, and Moshe loves to start with Matovu, right? Mm-hmm. The question of Matovu, which says, what is the translation of Matovu Alecha?
How good are your tents?
Exactly. So sometimes they say the tents, some translations, sometimes it says, because it's Mishkenotecha, sometimes more than tents, they say your sanctuaries, right? So the big question is, like, when you really start services, and you sit down in the service, the first thing you ask to yourself is a reflective question: how good are your sanctuaries? How good is my sanctuary? We always talk about scanning ourselves when we start services, right? This is the best first question. That's why it's the first prayer, that we have in the Siddur, in the prayer book. How good is your sanctuary, Gaston? Let me see. It's full of garbage. It's full of doubts. It's good. It's going great, right? That's kind of the first question there. So we need to always have a personal teva. And sometimes we need to isolate ourselves in order to do, and there is such thing even in Judaism, right? Call it bodedut. Bodedut is to isolate, to seclude yourself, to really pray in a way that you will talk to God. More than the prayers, you just said, you remember like Tevye in Field on the Roof? Mm-hmm. Tevye is always talking to God, yes. Right? He doesn't go with the prayer, right? He says like, why did you do that? Why did you choose another people, this time, those kind of things, like, I can't believe, this happened, right? So they talk about this idea of doing seclusion and pray to God in an isolated way. Create your own teva and go for it. And even Nachman of Breslov, who is a prominent rabbi, Hasidic rabbi, he even suggested a certain type of prayers and that certain time of seclusion, you should go for how many days?
40.
There you go. For 40 days, yes.
My understanding, a little bit of knowledge is dangerous. So my understanding was that you pray individually in a group.
Okay.
That the reason for a minyan is that you pray, but it's an individual prayer. It's a conflict. I mean, I'm in a collective and with a bunch of people, but I'm praying my own prayer.
Uh-huh.
I mean, obviously there's a prayer book and there's some things that sort of guide my attention one way or another, but it is my prayer. We are not paying, the only time we pray collectively is on Kol Nidre, as I understand it.
There's a lot of times that we pray collectively. I mean, there's a lot of times that we pray collectively.
We do, but
And also many, you said like collectively, you means like with the same prayer, all in the same direction, out loud. That's
in
what.
other words, you were just talking about you're in your own ark.
Uh-huh.
You're in your own tent. So what I'm thinking about now is guaranteed different than what you're thinking about. But we're in a group. I'm sort of motivated, energized by just being in a group, even though
Absolutely.
you don't even know what I'm thinking.
Yeah, look, this is like the Ecclesiastes, right? It says, there's a time for this, a time for that, a time for, and there's a time to be in community, and there's a time to be alone.
Exactly the opposite.
Uh-huh.
You're doing both at the same time.
Both at the same time.
It doesn't make sense when I'm saying to you, and where I heard this
Yes.
first time was from Chabad
Yes.
in Parsha So,
Mm-hmm.
when the story is that each tribe comes and swears allegiance to one entity.
Yes.
The federation. But, and each time it's, Gaston comes and he has 2 silver this. You come 2 silver, you 2 silver. Well, why do they repeat it over and over again? To show that everybody is giving the same thing. Then, he says, that Ephraim comes. And Ephraim, it's on Shabbat. And they say, how can you be praying collectively? How can you be unifying on Shabbat? Because to the Orthodox, you're praying individually. Even though, and it's a contradiction. When I say contradiction, it doesn't make sense. Rabbi Feldman used to say it had complex ambiguities. And there are clear contradictions. And that is what seems to me very difficult, but is true. There are true irreconcilable contradictions. And one of them is how you pray.
The Hebrew word pray is a reflexive. So hallel, it's not something you do outward, something you do to yourself.
Yes, inwards.
Say it again, Mike, say it again. It's the word to pray is a reflexive verb. It's something you do to yourself. Right.
Yeah.
David, there's a rabbi, David Aaron. David Aaron is he's American Israeli, and he talks about this, and that's exactly when he starts out. He says, he talks about what's your conception of God, but he goes on the idea of praying and this idea that it is reflexive. In a way, when you pray, I want to be careful here. You're praying to yourself. You're trying to find the divine. To be human is to be divine, and to find that divinity in yourself. Not an easy thing.
No.
But that's and that's exactly the point, the reflexiveness of prayer. And this is something we never talk about. I mean, honestly.
No, now you're talking about it. I'm going to be talking about, praying and prayers.
I have been going to the synagogue for years. And the only time I hear about prayer is on the internet. Rabbi Aaron speaks about it mostly. So I think when we go to synagogue, we should be talking about praying.
Absolutely.
That's what we do.
Absolutely.
That's what we're supposed to be doing. It looks like we're doing it.
No, it's beautiful. Well said. And we'll open up, for more discussions and learning about also prayer. Now, so continue with the personal teiva. One of the things that the teiva has, there are 2 things. One is it was built in 3 different levels. If you remember, had different levels, right? Maybe one was for the man, the other one was for the elephants, but it was built in 3 different levels. And the other thing that the ark had to have was a tzohar. A tzohar is kind of like a little window, or is there any other word for tzohar that is better than window?
No.
A very narrow window, right? Very narrow, that you cannot see really from inside to the outside, but enough for the little window for light to come in, right? For light to come in. So I'm going, since we're talking about the Zohar, which is this little window, I'm going to cite something from the Zohar. I'm on the second page if you want to read with me. The first page still? Second page, okay. So it says, open to me, this is, the Zohar is citing someone or is quoting from the Shira Shirim, which is the Song of Songs. So it says, open to me, and they try to explain what that really means. And so the Zohar suggests that means open to me, an opening as thin as a needle, and I shall open to you the celestial gates. Open to me, my sister, since the opening to come into me is within you. So my children, that was saying God, right, shall enter only through you. Unless you open your opening, I am closed off and cannot be found, says God. Hence, open to me assuredly. Therefore, when King David, wished to come into the king, right, into God, he would say, open to me the gates of the righteousness, right? We sing this in every Hallel. Yeah, Pitchuli Sha'arei Tzedek. I will go in them and I will praise Yah. Yeah, as being one of the names of God. This is the gate of Hashem. The gates of righteousness, which is Malchut, that means actually this world, is an opening through which to come into the king. This is the gate of Hashem, of God, to find him or her and cleave to him or her. Hence, open to me, my sister, my love, for my head is filled with dew, to unite with you and be at peace with you forever. So what they're trying to say a little bit of Zohar here is really like say that when you are in a time of trouble, and it reminds me of the Simon and Garfunkel,
Bridge over troubled waters.
Yeah, I love that song. So beautiful. So it says that in order for you to find God, the only thing you need to do is to open to me. You have to be open, and it says here, as thin as a needle. It's not that you need to, all the time I'm so religious, I'm going to do all this. Just open yourself up a little bit, because if you do not open up, he's going to be closed off and cannot be found. So that's kind of a reminder of what they say our lives, it's a reminiscence of how our lives should be when they talk about the Tohar, this little window, right? That is kind of like the opening for that little light to come in. Now, how they relate this into the three levels of the ark. Some rabbis from the Musar movement, they suggested that the three levels of the ark really are related to the three levels of speech and thoughts. What is the lowest of the levels when we talk? What? Well, I think that what we're talking about is kind of your manners, what they talk about. It's kind of like when you talk with your friends, and you talk very mundane type of language, right? And you talk with the F words and those kind of things, right? We all have it. But the rabbis from the Musar movement, they suggest that that's very kind of a low kind of like speech, right? Low way of language. Then there's always, of course, the middle way, and then you have the highest of all, which is kind of the first level, which is when you speak with this little light from God in you. Mm-hmm. Understand the idea? Right?
Yeah.
It's because and if you relate this to the three different levels of the soul, right? One is speaking with your ego, the other one is speaking with your emotions, and the third one is speaking with clarity, speaking with God, with God's wisdom in you. And you can tell sometimes, when we are the ones who really, you can tell from yourself. Watch yourself when you're talking and when you're speaking, and you'll realize which of the three levels you're using at that moment. Who is really driving? Which part of you is really driving? Are you really speaking with sechel, as they say in Hebrew, with wisdom? Are you speaking like with your guts, and you're speaking with your ego, and there's so much mentality in it, that I want to harm you and say what I want to say and be rebellious, right? So that's a little bit of the light. And the other thing they said about speech and relationships, with that Zohar in mind, the little window of light, is that when there's a dispute, there is a disagreement or discussion, or someone is fighting with someone else, usually it's very difficult to stop that fight. Someone has to stop, right? One of the two has to stop. And it's very difficult at times. So someone said, be the bigger sister, the big brother, right? I mean, like, even if you're right, just for the sake of peace, just stop this discussion or this argument. And then what they say is that when one of the two of the individuals who are having this argument or this discussion or this fight stops, it's almost like there is a threat between the two of us that is making us fight, right? In an invisible threat. And I'm fighting. But when I stop it, it's, the rope just dropped down. And then you're like, right? The other person is like, what happened here? It's so loose. There's no reason to fight anymore, right? I just left all my weapons on the street, on the floor. So what the rabbis is saying is that at that moment that someone loses the rope and stops fighting, immediately the light from the Zohar, that light from the little window, comes into the situation. allowing the two people to come into, if you allow even a few minutes without saying anything, all of a sudden you have clarity. It's almost like your layers and your veils are like, oh my God, I'm fighting with my brother, right? Am I fighting about $10? Am I fighting, who's, at what time the kids should be having dinner or going to sleep? Are we really, right? It's all the time like, makes no sense.
But that's the ability to change, and that's the key. People do not want to change, and their mentality stays tunnel vision, and it's very hard for them to break out and to be able to accept new ideas and new realities.
So Neil is saying that it's very difficult to change, that it's very difficult to accept new realities, it's very difficult really to accept that the change needs to be.
So when Neil says that, that's his situation.
That's right.
It's your situation.
But
I'm sure that when I find fault with somebody, it's my fault that I'm bringing forward.
No, that's not the point I'm trying to make.
No?
It's the change. People are fixed. They don't want to change. It's very hard for them.
It is hard, but it's not impossible.
No, it takes practice.
Yes, it takes practice, and we are not taught. In our society, we're not taught to that. We are not taught really to make changes. We are not taught to really lose the rope. We are taught to win the game.
Yes.
And even that's a learning process. You have to develop the ability to say, okay, I'm doing the wrong thing, I'm going to change. And like overnight, you change. Why? Because in your mind, it's for your benefit. And so you only do change when you think you're going to benefit from it.
Okay, so it's for ulterior reasons.
Always, everything is self. You're motivated
I
from self to do.
I understand.
But you would change something because of your child.
Correct.
So then so it's not just self, you're doing it because you want something better for your child.
No. Well, I'm seeing it in a different concept. I know that between the ages of I know that between the ages, say, 4 and 7 is the most dramatic time in a child's life where they glean very deep beliefs from what they see in their parents, because the parents are the greatest influence. And then from there, that becomes like subconscious. And the problem there is so deep in your consciousness that you have a tendency of repeating the same mistakes over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem, because it's hard to break it. That's why I'm saying change is the hardest thing a human being can do. And when you look around at yourself or others, the rabbi can give a lecture from now till doomsday, but if you're not willing to accept a change in order to improve your life, it's worthless.
In psychology, we call it when you're working harder than your client. When you go back home and you think about your client, and then you go back to the patient, client, whatever you want to call it, and then the person doesn't want to change, and as it change, that means that there's a lesson saying that when you are working harder than your client, drop the ball. Tell them that they don't need you anymore. Yeah, you work harder than your client.
So that's the key that you have to go off of, is change, because once you change, supposing you don't believe in God, and all of a sudden something happens, that crisis, or whatever it is, automatically forces you to change. And some people who are agnostic, secular, all of a sudden they find God.
We all know that in crisis is where we usually have that type of, and then also we know that the crisis is over, and times also we go back to the bad habits. Maybe not exactly.
You have to learn.
Yes, absolutely.
Is worth it, and you'll keep it.
So thank you for everyone's comment. These are hard, topics sometimes, to talk about, but it's true, it's reality. And now, part of the 3 levels not only is the speech and because again, the whole idea of what we say also creates what we are, or who we are, or what we have around us. So if you want a world where actually people are respectful and everything, probably your way of language will not be the mundane one, right? You want to create, an environment where people respect each other, right? Maybe where I like to say this because it's, the F word is not used, because it's not needed. Sometimes it's needed just to get an outlet, if you need it, because I think the insults are really, and swearings are really cool when it comes to to outlets, But,
So you want your speech to change into an action.
yes, because your speech is a reflection of who you are. The way you speak is really a reflection of who you are. Because what you speak most of the time, it is what you felt and also maybe what you thought. So really, the thing is not look what that person said, I can't believe it. No, the big question is, look at that person's heart. What color is it? How could have said something like that, right? It didn't come from, specifically just from the mouth, it had it processed. And in order to say something specifically, that might be harmful or harshful, right? It probably comes from your heart first. So the question is, what color is your heart? Right? And many times, we'll speak more about that. But part of the 3 levels of thought as well is that when you want to recreate your world and create a new reality, you have the first level of self-awareness. You need to be self-awareness. They have the second level of self-forgiveness. And the third, they say, what did I learn from this situation? That's kind of a way to say, when you decide that you're going to change, because you bring that self-awareness. Sometimes we have self-awareness, but we don't go to the next level, which is self-forgiveness, right? Because many times we talk about this. I talked about this a few weeks ago on the parasha, and this, during the sermon, that we might think that we are forgiving a lot of different people, but we barely forgive ourselves, and the work is not done unless and until you don't forgive yourself, you don't have self-forgiveness or self-love, the work is not done. Sooner or later, you're going to come back to the same thing. Because the reality is that you didn't really do your job inside. You didn't really forgive yourself for what you have done. And you didn't really give yourself the love that you need. So sooner or later, you're going to arrive to the same situation. It might take years, might take months, but the work is not done. And it's only regrets. So now everyone was inside, right? On the ark. And here's a big question that people ask, and it's like, what's going on inside? I remember when we were in quarantine, and then I started to read the papers. There were tons amount of divorces. I don't know if you remember reading that. Even because of that, the state of Florida specifically, and many other states, they decided to go back and create a mandatory rule that you have to do a premarital course before you get married and you get a license. And they also make a huge amount of things like getting a discount, for your license if you do a premarital course. The reason I know that is because I'm approved by the court to do premarital courses, and it's very interesting, to see, especially when they come this one and say, "No, I was married already 3 times," but it's her first time. I already had 3 kids, and how long do we have to do this course for? And I say it's mandatory to be at least 4 hours. 4 hours? What are we going to talk about? Oh, believe me, people were talking like 6 hours, 8 hours, and he had, especially the one, who was married 3 times, he had a lot of issues. There's only one situation, but a lot of issues. And he was going for the 4th divorce. Believe me. If he would have thought still, with that type of way of thinking. So, but what I said is all of a sudden, people had to confront reality and face to face see each other's, and also test your patience with your kids. Each person had different realities. People have different stories, right? We know that. But there was the pandemic really, when we were in quarantine, gave a lot of chances for people to know each other more, even spouses, even partners, even to know your kids better. Because if you go in the morning, early in the morning, and then you just go and come back at night when you put your kids to sleep, when do you talk to your kids, right? Or when do you even see your spouse or your partner? So many went into destroying their marriage, because they couldn't really see each other. And that's why they worked so much, and that was easier to do it that way. And other people had the opposite. They really got to know themselves. They got to know their partners and their children. So the question is, when you go into your own